Hello everybody, welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
So you just bought a house.
Congratulations.
Whether it's brand new or used house, there are 3 documents that you should hang on to.
Right.
Forever.
And this applies whether you have a mortgage or not. So yes, you should keep all your mortgage documents and all that good stuff, but this is for everybody. Mortgage, no mortgage, these 3 documents, they are non-negotiables.
Okay, we're going to start with the most obvious one, your settlement statement.
Yes, please keep your settlement statement. That is the 2-page document, usually 2 pages, sometimes 1, sometimes 3, but usually 2 pages. And it has all the money bits, right? This is what you get from your title company or lawyer, however you closed on your property. It has things like the purchase price, your earnest money. It has all the different prorations between the buyer and the seller. It has that you paid your homeowner's insurance in advance and whatever else you paid. It has the final amount of money that is due to the seller, which are seller proceeds, has the final amount of money that is due from the buyer, all that sort of thing. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, keep your final settlement statement. You will need it later.
Yeah, you'll definitely need it. That's like I think the one thing that the most common call we get from somebody from years ago, and keep this in mind that we've sold over 3,000 houses, is agents, all listings almost, mostly listings, but that we've done well over 8,000 is brokers. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we'll get a phone call from, hey, I bought a house in 2008 and do you have a copy of my settlement statement? Well, the answer is no. Sorry, we don't have it, but you should have that, because all of a sudden now maybe they're selling it like they sold it, it was a rental, and then they're trying to figure out the basis, but they forgot what they paid, and maybe they think, oh, well, what, but maybe there's some, like the tax record may not be accurate, or it may not be in the tax record anymore, or there may be other costs they're trying to get. So keep that thing.
Right, absolutely. So please keep in mind that not only does your broker no longer have that settlement statement, also your title company no longer has that settlement statement, because we're all required to keep these documents for so long, and then after that we are not required to keep them. We cannot keep them forever, and we go ahead and we destroy those copies. So you are the keeper of your own settlement statement.
The next thing is not an obvious one, but it is the home inspection report.
Yes.
When you pay the home inspector and he gives you this 13-page thing with a bunch of pictures and arrows and this. Why should we keep that?
Right. So hopefully it's 13 pages. Sometimes it's more like 38 pages. But you should keep that. And the reason you need to keep that home inspection report is because it is wise for you to pass that home inspection report on to the purchaser of your home when you go to sell it. Because what happens is, so let's say for example that you're lucky, you only had a 13-page report, and the report was really clean, right? There was hardly anything on there. There were just a couple small things, and they were not things that bothered you. The seller didn't fix them because you didn't ask. You didn't fix them because they didn't bother you. And it's all good, and you have forgotten about them. Yeah,
you were excited to get the house because there were multiple offers maybe, and it was the perfect house for you. And he said, oh, there's a bunch of stuff. It's probably $1,000 to fix it. And you're like, I don't care. I'll fix it later on. The house is in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. But there was a cracked pipe and a weird thing and whatever. I don't really care.
Right. So now the important thing is that those things, maybe you fixed them, maybe you didn't. But particularly if you didn't, that report needs to go to the purchaser of your home so that you are disclosing everything about your property. Remember, it is your job as the seller to disclose everything about the property, the things that you know and the things you should have known. So that home inspection report falls into both of those categories, because because you got the inspection report, and you should have known because, well, you had the inspection, so you should have read the report. So there you have it. The other thing is there are other things to hand over, but the most important thing that I want you to remember is that home inspection report is not something to be thrown out once you're done purchasing the property. Please keep it and pass it on to the purchaser of your home.
Now, imagine this scenario. You get your home inspection, and one of the things the inspector says is, well, in the ceiling you have these like joists and supports, and they're twisted. Like the builders sometimes just hammer a couple of them together and they're twisted, and it's not that big of a deal, but it can be a big deal later on. You're like, whatever, they're twisted. I don't really care. And then you sell the house, and maybe he waived inspections, which you probably shouldn't do, but you waived inspections, and then you hire a home inspector, or let's say you have a roof problem a couple months after you move in, and the guy comes out to look at it and goes, oh, I remember this house. I did the inspection on this house 3 years ago, and I told the last guy that this was a problem. I said, all these joists in here are twisted, and that in the future this could be a problem. And you're like, I got the SRPD right here, and he never disclosed any of these problems. He goes, well, I wrote up a report, and I gave it to him with it, and I showed it to him too, and it's in there. But he's not going to go, like most sellers just go, I've been in the house 3 years, I don't remember anything, I'll just put no on everything. But so you could have a problem, and that's actually happened. True story was a person didn't disclose something that the guy who came out to fix it said, oh, I fixed this one time before for the last guy. Like I was the guy who came out here and fixed it. It broke like this too, and he just said, whatever's the cheapest thing, and I did this, but now we have to do the more expensive one, and and that was an actual true story where the guy was like, oh, now he's upset that the last guy didn't tell him, and he's like, I know he told him because the guy who fixed it is the guy who told him.
Yep.
Okay.
So the last thing that we want you to hang on to is any disclosures that you received from the seller. And the reason we want you to hang on to those disclosures, so in Nevada it's called an SRPD, or a seller's real property disclosure. We also have other disclosures. We have disclosures for mold, disclosures for noise, disclosures for all kinds of things.
Expansive soil.
Construction defect.
How would you like to buy a house and not realize that there was a construction defect and that you're due $5,000 for some lawsuit, but the previous guy took the money and didn't tell you about it, and then you find out that there's a problem, and you go to the builder, find out, and your neighbors go, oh yeah, we all got $5,000 to fix that. And he's like, well, he took the $5,000, but he never fixed it. So he just took the cash and jetted, right?
Right. So your disclosures that you get from the seller are very important. Hang on to them. Whether you need them to go back and have the seller remedy something that he didn't disclose and should have, or you will want these when you go to sell your house, because there may be things on there that need to be disclosed to the next buyer. So this is very important. When I represent a buyer, I try very hard to make sure that if those documents are available from the seller, I ask for them. I ask for any previous home inspections. I ask for any previous disclosures so that we can get a better idea of the condition of the property. And then I hand those documents over to the home inspector of the current purchaser so that he's looking at them and he understands the things to look out for on top of what he normally looks for.
Now, some of these disclosures are not obvious. So I'll give you an example. Meth lab. There is not a disclosure normally that you do that says this house was or was not a meth lab.
Right, but this is a state-by-state. Remember that every state is different. All the laws are different. So we're just talking specifically for our market.
And we're talking in general too about disclosures. And let's say you had this house, it's in an older neighborhood, but it's been completely rehabbed, it's beautiful, and you remembered something about a meth lab, but you don't remember. But so it turns out that when you bought the house, there was a disclosure. It was a sheet of paper. You probably signed it and didn't pay attention to it. And they said, "Oh, hey, one time this house was a meth lab, and then it's been whatever they call remediated. And then they fixed it up and sold it, and then you're buying it, but it was a meth lab. Well, you still have to disclose to the next guy. It doesn't mean it was a meth lab while you owned it, right? You have to disclose it was a meth lab. So you want to keep those so you can go back and go, hey, that's right, this was a meth lab like a long time ago. Because if not, let's say you forget, and then the next guy doesn't disclose it because he had no idea, right? Or something happens and you find that there's some weird problem with the house because of chemicals that got in it, and the roof starts decomposing on you, and they're like, oh, well, that's because this house was a meth lab, and you're like, what? How was that? Right? So the smart thing to do, and you probably most of the time it's not going to be an issue, but keep them, and keep them somewhere where you won't lose them.
Absolutely.
safety deposit box, or like where you keep your birth certificates, or something you absolutely don't want to forget. Because when you do sell the house, you don't want to mess that one up.
Exactly. And again, please don't depend on your real estate agent to keep those disclosures for you. Like I said before, we only keep these documents for a certain period of time, and then we destroy them. So please, you are the keeper of your documents. And
then the other thing too is, keep this in mind. Your real estate agent may not be in the business anymore. They may have moved to another market, right? Mm-hmm. And they may have switched companies even. And remember, they won't keep a personal copy. For the most part, they turn their file in the broker, and then once they get the check, they're out of there. They don't keep copies of your documents. So you'll call your agent, and they're like, ooh, that's my old broker. And then maybe the old broker's not real thrilled that you're trying to get copies of disclosures or whatever. They say, hey, it's in a warehouse somewhere. It's going to take us a few weeks, or we've even seen it where they go, hey, we can't find the thing. Like it's, our brokers did 5,000 transactions last year, and one of our, where we store stuff was broken into, and some boxes were taken, and that we think that was one of them. And you're like, oh shoot, because now you don't have it, because literally most of these things are kept, they're paper. Right. Even today, a lot of them are paper. And then a lot of times the digital ones are kept, but then they're also deleted usually after 5 years. Right. State by state. There's different rules for how long they have to be kept and everything. So if you don't have them, they probably don't exist. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it is your responsibility. These are your documents. So please keep them. Yep. For most people, it is the most valuable transaction they'll do in their life, is the purchase of a house, purchase or sale. And you want to keep the paperwork pretty up to speed and keep it, make it accurate. Mm-hmm. So we know that you get lots of paperwork when you're purchasing your house. And like we said, besides your mortgage documents, these three are the most important: your final settlement statement, your home inspection, and your disclosures. Please keep them. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Please like it, share it, put comments, and what else? We'll see you on the next video. Right? Bye. Bye.